All right. Okay. Anybody have any wonderful, interesting things to talk about? I discovered something accidentally about not 8 or 9 months ago. When we started the self-check customization, I started using GitHub as a way to store banners and different images for that customization, and had that all built out, had that going. And then last week I asked Lucas to do something quickly for us because I was busy. And it turns out Bywater's been using GitHub to do the exact same thing for a while, and I hadn't even noticed it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was glad to know my idea wasn't a bad one.
Yeah, we've started doing that too. After we had a couple of images break that had just been linking out to like Overdrive on a banner for that. And we thought, well, we could just put it in GitHub in a repo, and then it's easy to link to and always know it's going to be stay the same.
Yeah. We get all of our marketing images and everything from the marketing department. We can't change them. We can't do anything. And they just upload them to a network drive. And then from there, we just move them over. The only issue with it is I either have to use my personal laptop to use the command line, or we have to use the web interface. And moving things around in GitHub on the web interface is troublesome at best.
Yeah.
There's a link I just put in the chat to our images that we've started putting on GitHub. So
I think mine are hosted in Dropbox right now, so maybe I will make the change.
what I discovered about Dropbox is I put an image in there that was big enough that it triggered the it hit the limit on the number of times the bandwidth that was available for downloading public images from Dropbox. It hit it pretty quickly. In GitHub, the limit is a lot higher. And I guess it's not enforced. GitHub says there's a limit, but it's a soft enforcement. They don't police it very well, is my understanding.
They probably only enforce it if you're like going wild.
If you're a real hog, yeah. If you're breaking it constantly, they probably.
Well, we upgraded. It was very exciting. Our system broke.
That's not good to hear. What happened?
Our circ and find rules. Okay, so there's two things going on with the circ and find rules in this update. One of them moves them into a different table, and there's also a patch that I guess will tell you if you have circ and find rules that aren't valid, like because the item type has been deleted, for example. And it's doing it in the wrong order when you upgrade. So it's checking first and then moving the table over. And then if the table has things that are invalid, it fails. Or really, it just makes everything undefined. Yeah, so they
Sounds
put
like
our
a
back
big pain in the ass.
Yeah, and it took them like 3 hours to fix it. We were only open for like an hour of that, but yeah. I think part of it was because they were trying to figure out what went wrong.
So I hope they have a plan to resolve that moving forward.
Yes, I would think so. And or at the very least, maybe they check it or they know exactly how to fix it when it comes up. You know, they just pull the circ rules back up and plugged it back in for us in the command line. And that got around the...
We upgraded our test server, but I haven't checked that. It would be pretty obvious pretty quickly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the number of items you could check out was still valid for each item type patron set in, but then if you like scroll over, you'll just see everything at zeros or undefined, depending on which field. I think the ones that are zeros are ones that don't get set to undefined by default, because there's still a few that they're moving over to that. So that was like
I'm looking at my test server right now. I see a whole bunch of zeros, but I don't see anything that says undefined.
Are there zeros where there shouldn't be, though?
That's, yeah. Like 50 rules per library times 51 libraries. I don't know. There's a lot going on in our script rules, so.
Yeah, I just checked.
Everything
Yeah.
actually looks pretty normal to me.
Cool. And then the other main complaint that we've had from staff is that on the check-in screen now, if you have the, here, wait, let me find what the system preference is called again. The hide patron name, which asks if you want to show or don't show the names of patrons that have items checked out or on hold on detail pages or the place hold screen, now also affects when you're the check-in column. So, or here, wait. Yeah. We'll just do that.
There we go.
I've gotten irritated with a couple of developers about this too, because they've done this in a couple of other places where they've applied this
yeah, so
hide
here,
patron name to places where the description of the preference doesn't say it applies to.
yeah, so there's a bug. Let me find the bug number here. I'll check this out real quick and then check it in so you can see where it should. Yeah. Because I don't know why it wasn't checked out to me. Oh. I really need to just bring a barcode scanner home. Okay, yeah, so it should say my name here, and instead it just says the barcode number. Yeah, and it also, I think like a year ago, it changed that in the like the hold confirm button for a while, actually.
I think I shared the jQuery with you to fix that.
Yeah, I think it is fixed. Like here, they had taken this out, and George wrote some jQuery, and it checks a report. But it's like the same thing. They keep changing it and saying, well, it's matches up better. Let me go find the bug number.
It does match up better, but it doesn't, it's doing things that the system preference doesn't, it's not described what it does in the system preference. And that was my complaint to Nick, who made that change in the, he was doing a completely different change to that pop-up node. And while he was in there, he just threw in this thing so that it does something now, so that this hide patron name affects places where the description doesn't say it affects.
And I feel like it's a totally different area here than what's described there, and it shouldn't be the same preference. I think it should be two preferences or a modular preference like the newer, I mean, not yet, but on master, if you do a, if you're doing like column configuration for like hide certain columns in the new patron, it's check marks instead of the where you like type it in with the pipe. And so if they did it like that, like hide it in these places, and you could check box which ones you wanted to hide it in. Because also it looks, I think it looks not very nice to have the names show, because we tried turning that on like to see how it looked because it had been a while on the other screens that it's off on, and it was not, we did not like how it looked. So
yeah, I personally am glad that it's hidden on the check-in screen now. So I'm not going to write jQuery to fix that problem because that's the way I want it. But I think that it would be nice if they're going to make hide patron name, they should at least change the name of the preference, and they should document it better.
yeah, and it should be, it like was not, it didn't say in the patch notes for that it was going to do this. This is the bug that caused it. Oh wait, I stopped sharing.
That was my complaint to Nick when he added it to that pop-up. Is that,
like,
you know, there was nothing in the, there was no mention that that change was going to happen in any of the work that he did on that unrelated bug.
Yeah, and that's like the same thing here.
Somebody else will get that. You can ignore my phone ringing. I'm ignoring it.
Sounds good. And I think it's just something that didn't get tested because I don't think that that's the default setting. Or if you don't do a lot of checking, you might not know. So like, I didn't realize that this must be how that patron title Inc. must look at that that setting. So then anything that uses patron title Inc. must get turned off if that's set to hide.
So has anybody else upgraded yet, played with it other than just test?
We upgraded. We didn't have too many problems. We did encounter, we're on Elasticsearch, and in the staff client, when you check in using the check-in box at the top of the page, you would check in and you would just get this, spinning blue circle, and it would be there for 2 minutes and you're just stuck and it's going nowhere. So there was some jQuery that fixed something for Elasticsearch in previous versions, but it caused this problem. So it was just a matter of removing that. But yeah, that one, staff immediately were in my doorway. It's not working. It's okay. And then we found that, let me think about it. We were looking at patrons hold notifications, and at first staff thought that they were not being triggered because they didn't see it at the top of the list. But when you looked at the list, all of a sudden it's now sorted in reverse date order. And so I have some jQuery that switched that back around. And I think Andrew looked at it and said he could see it, but then when he looked in master, it wasn't that way. So I don't know, I think it got left at, they were investigating why that was. But those are the two I can recall that came up.
When are they starting the webinars? Does anybody know?
Next week. I think
Next
the
week.
17th is the first one.
Yeah, I'm signed up for the one on the 17th.
Barbara, we must have updated the same day because I was looking back in the Slack and we were both having problems Friday morning.
Yeah, I think you and I were just kind of back and forth and coming up with issues.
Yeah. So bug 26686 is pushed to master. That's the sorting for updated on was broken on the patron notices tab. And so that's fixed in master, but it hasn't been backported yet. It just got fixed like a couple weeks ago, and I don't think there's been much backporting yet for 200506 because they were trying to get 2011 in the can, and I don't think that's done. I don't think that's been released yet. So
we did hear this. We had our call with Julie this morning, and maybe, I don't know, with everybody else having test machines or being early adopters, maybe this doesn't apply to many of you, but she was telling us, she had been telling us that the upgrade to 2005 would be happening in December, but she said as of this morning that she had heard that it's been pushed back to January for most customers. So
I was about to say the same thing because I had a call with Margaret this morning.
okay.
And she said the same thing. I was scheduled for December 19th. And they're saying now that they're making an infrastructure change so that my upgrade will happen sometime in January. They don't know the exact date yet.
I wonder if they have to do something to make the problem we had with our circ and find rules not be a problem. like they know how to fix it, but if they're updating a bunch of people, it might be easier if they can fix it, you know, before updating, or write a script as part of the update process that it would do it.
Well, I'm also thinking it's part of their migration to the cloud, their private cloud.
Oh,
They
yeah.
need to get some more breathing room on that. And then we've got holidays coming up, and it just the schedule started to get a little tight, I think. And I'm fine with that. But yeah, just let everybody know. I guess everybody else got the same message.
So the phone that was ringing was Bywater, and they wanted to talk to Robin. Has anybody else? It sounds like they're finishing up this email thing with Southeast Kansas, but has anybody else run into problems with that, or is having complications with that?
I don't think we've even started with the email thing, because we had some problem a couple weeks ago, and Liz thought it might be related to that, but then she was like, has Todd said anything about, and then used whatever the shorthand abbreviation they're using for the move over. And I was like, I mean, I got an email in like September that it was going to happen at some point, and that's the last thing I heard. So that's
we haven't had any problems. We went early because Mitch actually lives about a mile away from me. He was wanting to use me as a test case in case he broke everything, he could fix it quickly. And so we got moved over pretty quickly, gave him time to figure out some of the kinks.
The kink we're having is that, you know, we've got 54 different email addresses. And I'm sure that's what Jason's going through too.
Yeah, my biggest struggle is getting people, so they have to verify their email by clicking a link in an email that's sent to them from Amazon, but my people think that that's spam, which is good because they're not clicking weird random links, but at the same time that they're not clicking the link. So I've got maybe 5 or 8 libraries that I'm stuck on. I'm not sure how to get them to find the email and click it. But yeah, that's been our slowdown, has been the fact that we have so many different email addresses.
The Slack message that Robin just sent me says that she just got off the phone with Todd, and he's going to work with her on our libraries after he finishes the last year library. So
okay. I'll keep
no pressure
pushing
there,
them,
man.
I had a meeting last Friday and I was hoping that it would get through, and then Todd sent me a message afterwards and none of the people that needed to click had clicked yet. So I guess I'll get on the phone later today and see what I can do.
Yeah, we had some minor problems because as Mitch was talking to me and we were working through the process, he was also explaining to Todd how to do what he's been doing. And so in the middle of what Mitch and I were doing, Todd jumped in and started asking me all sorts of stuff, some of which had been done, others which had not, because Mitch and I were still working on that. And it got really confusing. And we had to tell Todd, just be quiet. Let us deal with this.
One other update then, if you're using, I don't remember if it was Christopher or George who wrote some jQuery for the item status, or the like holds, item level holds, cleaning up how that looks.
Is that all broken?
Yeah, they changed what the div is called. And
oh,
so
that's an easy fix.
Yeah. So it's just called like hold waiting instead of hold stash something. So just if you're on when you upgrade, if you already know you can fix that, then that'll simplify it.
My process for each upgrade is to take all of my jQuery out and put it in a document over here, and then put each piece in one at a time and make sure that it all works.
And then the other thing I do too is I check before I put it back in to make sure it's something that hasn't been fixed.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things get changed that fix it. And there was only like one other thing that wasn't working, and it was something that we had been kind of like do we really need that? So we just didn't put it back.
So you don't need it anymore.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to head out to my other meeting.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, we've moved to the Amazon SES. The only problem we had is I was trying to use the syspref to the return default path, which apparently doesn't like that, and it breaks it. So, but Mitch is setting that up. They can set it up at the Amazon end of things to set a different address for bounces and errors and complaints.
Yeah, I have 54 of those too. 54
I do not
different
envy you.
addresses.
Peace be
Yeah.
with you.
Everything gets more complicated the more libraries you have. Or I was talking to libraries last week about how, you know, there were, we're making each library, if a library doesn't have a total limit on the total circs, we're enforcing a limit starting January 1st of 100. Because we had this is a direct response to a patron at one of our libraries who got a card and then checked out 900 items at that library. Then they drove down the road and checked out like 300 items at a different library. And then they went to another library where there was a 25 item limit. And so they only checked out 25 items there. You know, the libraries that didn't have limits, because all limits are bad, now all of a sudden it's like, we need a limit. A few dozen of those items ended up being returned. Of those, and between the 5 members of the family, they had over 1,100 items checked out at one point. And it all happened within a couple of days. Within 48 hours of getting cards, they had checked out over 1,100 items. But I encouraged all of my member libraries to go out and review their circulation rules with their boards and think about limits. And so naturally, one of my libraries came back and they said, yeah, we decided that we want to change that right now we have a limit of 10 and like 2 videos and something else. And so we want to keep that limit for children and then make a different limit for adults. It's like, God, you know, that's so much harder than just saying, change it to 25 for everybody. It's like you've just, you know, you took something that could have been like 5 easy changes. And because we've got like 4 different adult categories and 4 different patient categories, now it's like, you know, I think I calculated that based on the number of categories they were using at that library, it's like 105 new circulation rules. And so I'm encouraging them now to cull their list of patron categories at that library. And we'll see how that goes. But circulation rules are a huge pain in the ass when you have multiple libraries. Unless everybody agrees on the same circulation rules. You have that, right, Jason? Everybody does the exact same thing?
We support local control.
Yeah, so do we.
So yeah, it's probably a matter of time before what happened there happens here, but it hasn't happened yet. My biggest problem lately with circulation rules is I'll go out and train and I'll say, you know, we write off fines every time they return an item because we don't charge fines. And I'm like, why are you charging fines in Koha if you don't charge fines in your policies? So that's been my current cleanup, is to try and convince them that they don't need to do that extra work if their policy says they don't charge fines.
Yeah, they just need to communicate better.
Right. That's our, yeah. That's number 1 in our consortium. Every users group, we talk about communication at least a little. So it doesn't happen often.
We have 2 locations and we still have those problems. It doesn't. So has anybody thought about, messed with, played with the fact that some of the OPAC system preferences are, continuing to move into the news feature and impact of that?
I haven't had any impact from that yet because we don't hardly use the news feature in the OPAC.
Right, but when the main user block gets moved into the news feature, you're going to.
I don't think it's going to be an issue here because we've got everybody using the exact same OPAC.
Oh, that's true.
We've talked about that a little bit at the web dev SIG, and I think the biggest problem that I'm going to have is that it's going to get, those system preferences are going to be lost in the news, because we do have people that use the news a lot to put things on their slips and stuff. So, and I know there's some filters on that table and stuff, but one thing I would really like to see is that broken out into its own tool. So instead of having news plus system preferences, it's news in one section and customizable OPAC blocks in another section. And I think there may be a ticket for that. I don't know for sure, but I can look.
A ticket or a bug?
Bug.
Okay.
I know, like Margaret was writing all that stuff down when we first talked about it. I'm not sure how far it got.
I think the thing that I like about having that stuff in the, having, I mean, it does mean that there could be a different internet main for each branch, essentially. And so the advantage of that I can see is if there's a library that's subscribed. We have I think 5 now libraries that subscribe to Canopy. There could be a link to Canopy just for those libraries.
It makes doing that easier. Yeah,
it does make doing that easier. But right now, I'm not even sure that, I guess the library directors are the only people that have access to the news feature. So it's not something that a lot of staff have the ability to change. So I'm not quite worried about that kind of issue that Jason might have, where right now nobody here is using the news for anything. So if somebody actually did want to use it in our system, they would probably have to call me and ask for training.
Yeah. We've got a number of people that have rights to use it, but basically Spencer is the only one that uses it, and everybody cringes every time he puts something on the staff interface because it's some bad video that breaks the way the page looks, and then I've got to go in there and fix it.
We did encounter, we're a single library, so I would have preferred that it just stayed where it all was and not be in news, but I can see the advantages. But we have a pretty customized OPAC, and so I was in there and trying to figure out how things worked and getting used to it and everything. And we use an Open Sans font for our OPAC. And no matter what I had in my CSS, it wouldn't display Open Sans. If you inspected the element, it would say it was, but I know what the font looks like, and that's not what it was. So there's apparently a setting. Let me see what it is. There's a system preference called NewsToolEditor, which I didn't even know that existed. And one of them is CodeMirror, and the other one is that tiny MCE. And I guess it defaulted to the tiny MCE, and that was taking over things and doing things that you didn't want it to do. I even tried putting in some CSS in the news editor, like in our OPAC header or whatever, and I'd save it, and then what I did would just disappear out of there. So it's driving me nuts. I'm like, what? I don't understand what's going on. And apparently it had to do with the difference between this, either using CodeMirror or the other. So if you encounter that, then look at that NewsToolEditor syspref and make sure it's at CodeMirror.
Is that a new syspref?
I had never heard of it. I don't know if it was new with this version or.
I'm not finding it on my system, so I'm thinking it may be new.
It's on my test system, and I just put the name of the preference in that chat box.
Yeah. But your test system's been upgraded, so
yes,
that
our
doesn't
test
tell
system
us
has been
whether it's
upgraded.
doesn't tell us
Well,
whether it's
now I'm
older or
looking-
newer.
Yeah,
Well, now I'm looking in the production system.
yeah, I don't see it, and we're on 1905.
Yeah.
I mean 1911, and I don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in my production system, so it must be new.
Okay. That explains why you'd never heard of it.
Yep. I'm going over to the release notes right now for 2005.
Yeah, see if it's in there.
There should be a list of, there's usually a list of all of the new system preferences.
And I think that list is automatically generated.
Actually, there isn't a list this time.
Of course not.
Of course not, yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything? Things are, I would say, relatively quiet here, but just
I opened a couple bugs lately. One was to display the SMS providers in alphabetical order when you're in the patron record, I guess, or anywhere, basically, so you don't have to look at an unordered list.
I have jQuery that puts them in the correct order, because of course I do.
I do too, and one of my goals this past month was to go through and look at lots of the jQuery that we're using to customize things and see if it's something that, you know, we could actually open a bug on and get it to do it by default.
Right.
And I opened this one. I don't even know if it's possible, but I know when we were on Innovative, if I had to restart the SIP server, I could do it myself. And we have an automated sorter and other third-party things. And I know I can get on Slack and have them do it pretty quickly, but it just seems like if there was a way for me to do it, that would be great. I don't know if there's architecture things behind the scenes that would make that not be possible, but.
As far as SMS sorting, there's a link to the bug that I opened on that issue in 2018. So if you open a bug, it's a duplicate.
Okay, thanks.
And somebody might fold it into this one, or mine's been pretty well ignored, so.
Well, that was another thing I thought I would try is I've kind of gone out there and I've poked at a few things where it's kind of like nobody seems to care about this, but I do. And so I've gone and made some comments or, you know, just to see if something will happen with it.
Well, I just added myself as a CC on your bug, so we'll see when that way I'll be able to know when they do get merged. when one of them does get marked as duplicate. It seems like there's another spot, the patron batch editor, the list of patron extended attributes does not sort alphabetically. It seems to sort randomly. If you load that with 3 different sets of patrons, it's like you're just rolling the dice on the order of that. And so I've got jQuery that puts that in the correct order too. I think it's the same jQuery. I think I just created it as a function or something and added it to different places. But there are a couple of places. I've always thought the SMS sorting, that was a weird place to not sort. So.
I added another one that I'm not sure if it's really a good idea or not, but when I was in reports using Mana, if you hover over, I don't remember if it's the name of the report or what, but if you hover over something, you get a pop-up that shows you the SQL code. And I thought, well, maybe that would be helpful in just our regular reports, because sometimes even though I've made notes about something, it's kind of like I still don't know exactly what it's going to be. And so I have to open it, and then I opened it and it's kind of like, oh, I can see immediately that's not the one I really wanted. And if I could hover over something and get a pop-up that showed the code, maybe that would help me.
So you opened a, oh, you just posted that bug there.
Yeah, so I just put that one up there.
Yeah, I'm a CC on that now too. That's a good idea. Is anybody really using Mana?
Sometimes, but the content comes over so funky that you have to take time to, clean it up.
I think that's, I think it's been fixed where it doesn't munge the end of the lines together funny anymore. I think that part's been fixed, but I still never use it. I've put one report in there, but I've just never bothered. One of the things that confused me, and I'm going to go over there right now and look at it. So if I go to Mana, or if I go to reports and let the reports page load, because that's always slow on this page. If I do new SQL report from Mana and just type in something as a keyword, one of the things I've always thought was weird is that it always says number of users is always 1. And it's kind of trivial, but there's this, it's got a table that says report name, notes, type, number of users, last import, comments, and actions. And the number of users is never, it's always the exact same number. It's always 1 in any of the systems I've ever seen. So I guess I don't understand the value of having that column if the number is never anything different than 1. Or if it's a bug, if that's supposed to be something different. For me, though, the kind of issue is always that the notes aren't very good. Just from looking at just from doing a search in Mana, I never really know if what's there is going to do anything that I want it to do or not. I never really know based on the name of any of these. and the notes on them if they're any good. I don't know. I don't know what anybody else thinks of that. So, you know, if I put any in there, and I've only put a couple in there, they all have my initials on them. So if you find any ones that say GHW, you know they're good.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
I kind of agree with you. I do like the notes and the different things that we have in the, you know, in the SQL library. Basically, you know, there are things you can. I'm just, when I use them, you don't know anything unless you spend enough time to really read through that SQL and figure out what it's doing.
Right.
And I have used a few of them, but it's just been really simple things, basically, that I could have written in 15 minutes. Instead, I just copied it in there.
Yeah, I'm looking, and I can only find one that I've written that I sent to Mana, and it's just one that I use to. Actually, well, that is a different one. I thought I put another one in here somewhere. Maybe I didn't.
Another thing I guess I don't like about it, and I think I've got this right, is if you go in there and you choose one and you bring it in, you immediately have to run it. And then you can go in and edit it. And I would rather be able to bring it in, I guess, and do some edits first.
Because
Right.
it's not going to work.
Well, yeah, especially with all of the, you know, everything crammed together, you know, if I don't know. And then, you know, maybe I immediately know this is close to what I want, but not exactly. I'd rather go in and, you know, do some edits before having to run it. And, you know, maybe it, you know, targets a lot of data and it takes a long time to run or whatever, you know, I'd just rather be able to edit it first.
Yeah, we just went live in June, so Mana was one of the things that's on our list for like to look at next year.
I like the idea of it.
Yeah, that's what my wife says about jazz. I like the idea of jazz, and then I'll put some jazz on. It's like, what the hell is this crap? She's not an Ornette Coleman fan.
And I came across bug 24968, which seems to be like the ability to turn on or turn off a cron job instead of having to have Bywater do it. And I thought that sounded interesting. Seems like it'd be good functionality.
Yeah, I'm going to follow that one too.
Yeah, that looks interesting.
Yeah. I can just imagine how easily I could break things with some control like that. That's awesome.
Your question about the SIP, kind of been thinking about that. I don't know why that wouldn't be possible. Restarting SIP is really easy.
Well, I'm almost thinking that, you know, before I got here, they had problems with SIP where they were having to call and have it restarted every 3 or 4 hours. So I think they actually put in a cron job that restarts it automatically every hour. But that's a recollection that I don't have any It's like election counts. You know, I have no fact-based evidence to support that at the moment. So, and I don't know where my I have a copy of the Nichols cron tab file, but I'm not sure where it is to look in there and see what's in there.
Is there a way to see every cron that's running on your system?
If you ask Bywater, could you send me a copy of the cron tab file? They'll do that.
Yeah, I've gotten that periodically. I've also gotten a dump of all the different SIP things that we have going. And I discovered we had 2 SIP accounts for services we weren't using anymore. So I was, cleaned those up and things like that.
I was just, I'm having 2 SIP accounts created today, and in the past, I've always been very clear with Bywater. This is what I want the name of the SIP account to be. Because when I got here, we had a lot of SIP accounts that were like SIP user 1, SIP user 2, SIP user 3. And SIP user 1 was used at like 20 different libraries for 5 different services. So it was impossible to tell which account was causing which problems. But Danny today was telling me that she has a script that she uses that she just plugs in the name of the library and the service, and it creates a name based on those 2 elements, the branch name and the service name. And then that way it takes her like 3 minutes to create a SIP account, as opposed to manually going in and going through all the steps, which takes a lot longer. So
yeah, we've got a FE Technology sort assist machine at the other location, and it's having some issues. We're not sure what's going on. They've been out a couple of times. It just randomly doesn't read things. And so we had that SIP account moved over to a totally separate port and everything, so we could track it separately to see if it's getting droppage there, just to kind of see what's going on.
cool. Yeah, I don't have any libraries with the sorter.
Yeah, that's our little sort assist machine that it's okay. It's just a big bin, and when the material drops in it, it just RFID checks it in. And it works all right. Our big AMH machine works nicely.
So I have a couple of libraries that the AMH machine wouldn't actually fit inside their building because it's so small. Because their building is so small. So we don't have a lot of use for those machines here. They're just too big.
This one is big. It's a 7-bin conveyor belt in the ceiling, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, Regina Renee showed us, a bunch of us, this sorting machine they have at Pueblo last year. It was awesome, yeah. It actually has to take them upgrade. It actually has to, it's not all downhill. It has to, parts of the machine have to go right against gravity to get it up to the right level.
The way ours works is you can put an item in our outside book drop that drops it into it, and then it raises it up to ceiling level, runs a conveyor along the ceiling around, brings it back down into the area where the actual singulator or sorting thing, and then where it reads the RFID tag. It's kind of interesting. We've been tempted to put a little what are they, GoPro camera on a book and run it through there.
At Lawrence Public, they have windows so that you can sit that are like at the right height for kids to watch the sorting machine working. So
yeah, we do too. I ought to take some pictures of this and send them out.
Yeah, the GoPro would be awesome. You guys should do that.
Yeah, somebody's got to have a GoPro. We're not buying one.
Yeah. Is that even a thing anymore? Do people still wear those cameras?
I don't have any idea.
Last time I heard the name GoPro was like about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. So
I'm sure there's something to that effect.
Yeah. Some non-phone based camera.
Yeah, we thought about doing the camera, but that's just not going to work. It's not going to be
Yeah.
in a position that's going to show you anything. All right. Anything else? As I said at the beginning, before I started the recording, we're going to need to find a new chairman come January, or a new person to host these. And so.
And as I stated right after Ed said that, it's not going to be me. So
We'll see what happens. All right. We got about 5 minutes. Anybody have anything, or do we want to call it a day?
I'm good with being done early. It's lunchtime here. So.
All righty.
Thanks, everyone.
See y'all later.
Thank you. See everybody later.
Yeah.